Hi all, welcome to the Marquee Matchups for the 3rd of February. This is the first week of the predictor and giveaway, so leave your predictions down in the comments down below what you think the 4 games are for this week. We'd much appreciated. And if you can sub to the channel if you're new, follow me on Twitter at GZLegend. All the links are down below as usual for playlists on the channel and social media links. We've got quite a few games to go through. I might find some extra routes as the weekend progresses, but these are the main routes that I have found for just now. So plenty to keep yourselves covered for and to give you an idea for what 4 to predict for the week. So the first game I am fancying this week is Bayern versus Schalke. I know we've just had a Bundesliga option in the form of Leipzig versus Hoffenheim, but Bayern versus Schalke is a pretty big deal in Germany, and for that reason I quite fancy it to be one of the games featured for this week. In terms of options, you're probably going to need one player from both teams to kind of justify your 80 rating overall. 11 players from the Bundesliga. I fancy them to go quite heavily on German players, so I fancy a minimum of 6. Then from there you have your team chemistry. I always say always 100, but I just do it to cover my back and also yours in case chemistry was to become a factor. 80 overall rating, it wouldn't exactly be difficult to put together. Quite a lot of decent rated players, and if it worst came to worst you can throw in Konoplyanka. Porto versus Sporting, for me I would say could be a very good shout. Both teams are kind of like part of the big three as it were in Portugal. I would say if this happens it's going to need a bit of mixing about with other teams. I would say this will happen. I think Porto and Benfica do play quite soon though, so that might crop up, but I would say this route is a very strong shout and I do quite fancy it. In terms of requirements, you're probably going to need 4 nations minimum. I hope they make an ease on the nations requirement, because you can't afford to really go Portuguese or Brazilian with this league. It kind of drains you dry. But 77 rating overall and a 7 out of 10 for likelihood. I'd rather fancy this shout. Frankfurt versus Darmstadt is the lesser of the 2 big games in Germany for what I've dug around on. I don't think this route will happen personally, but saying that, this might be the route that does crop up. I'm fancying they might go like so many rare players if this was to happen. I've went with 3 or 4 rare players in the team just to kind of tick the box of that potential requirement. So I've got like Hitz, Abraham, Junucevic and Kolasanic. One player is probably all you're going to need from either team. They might even do the 2 requirement again, which was quite a sneaky route to be honest, and a 4 out of 10 for likelihood. Juventus versus Inter, for me, I would naturally have a higher rating, but Inter aren't on forms like compared to where they should be, or where the Italian the Inter fans see them really, in all honesty, because Inter see themselves and kind of deservedly right at kind of like a top 4 team, but they've kind of not been on point. And if this happens it will be 1 player from both teams. It currently costs us like 5 to 8k. It's pretty expensive. You'd probably get a decent reward, and 80 rating would probably be something they would do, maybe even 79. I'm saying 7 out of 10 out of likelihood just now, but I don't 100% fancy it as one of my first 4 choices. Chelsea versus Arsenal, however, I do fancy quite heavily. You're probably going to need 1 player from both teams, an 8 out of 10 for likelihood. I've went with an all rare squad because it's very easy to do and it wouldn't exactly be very expensive just now to do, but come the time this went live then it would be difficult because it would probably all be quite expensive. I'm going 11 nations exactly. Wouldn't exactly be difficult either. The good thing is not 1 player is from another nation, and it's easy. Like you can go like Montero, you can go Fuguli, you can really make it, and Wanyama. You can go specific nations, and you could make quite a bit of profit on individual players, I would say. But I really fancy this route for route this week. Other field leads I don't fancy because mainly I think it's like Sunday they play, and they don't seem to pick Sunday games at the moment. They just seem to pick games that are played on a Saturday. I think saying that Chelsea and Arsenal's like a Saturday or a Sunday game, but with this route it would be, I'm going a minimum of like kind of like all silver or something. They might do something like that again, like player quality. 69 overall minimum rating if they were to throw that in. 4 out of 10 for likelihood. 2 to 4k is what this costs, and it wouldn't be exactly expensive. Also expect maybe rare players from the league and one player from either team, or they might just go 2 players. So I've got Kyle Bartley in the team. Southend versus Scunthorpe is a top of the table clash in League 1. I don't really fancy it personally, but as usual, because they've been throwing random games in from leagues where if it's like a top of the table clash or whatever, this might crop up, but I highly doubt it. However, I've got to prepare you guys in case it does happen. There's a mix of silvers and bronzes, just to kind of balance it out. 60 overall rating, I might go to like 65, which wouldn't exactly be difficult. So keep that in mind, 60 to 65 rating would be where they put an overall, and 1 player from either team would cover your backs. And the last route of the week is Huddersfield versus Brighton. I don't fancy this one bit in terms of happening, mainly because despite being a top of the table clash, both teams, I think it's like a Thursday game. This is like 2nd of February they play, so I don't expect this route to happen, but it could happen nonetheless as a sneaky route, but it's very, very unlikely. 67 overall rating minimum would probably be required. 2 out of 10 for likelihood. 1 player from either team, so you could go Stockdale and that would cover your back, but I've also thrown in plenty of other options. I've got Dallapara, I think his name is the left mid, from Huddersfield. But in terms of where this would go, I think the 4 that I fancy for this week, the 4th route I will say for now is Juventus versus Inter as my 4th route. But all in all, I feel from Juventus, Inter, Chelsea, Arsenal, then Bayern, Schalke and Porto Sporting, they're the 4 routes that I'd rather fancy for this week. I'm going to do a bit more digging, see if I can find more routes for this week, and I will put an extra routes video if I can find them. So hopefully you find this useful. As always, let me know in the comments down below what 4 you fancy to join the predictor and giveaway. Smash likes as always, sub to the channel if you're new, follow me on Twitter at GTheLegend, and I will catch you all later.